and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer, and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television, as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J. Loren Norris.
When you find that you have dug yourself into a hole, usually by something you said or did, here's good advice. Stop digging. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned. There is a retreat coming up that I want you to know about. It's called the Story Power Academy Retreat. This Story Power Retreat is about focusing on your communication skills, taking them to the next level. Discover, develop, draft, deploy, and deliver some of the best stories you've ever learned. You're going to listen, create, connect, relax, and reflect around this beautiful lake scene in Granbury, Texas. It's a chance to rejuvenate and refresh and start over with some of the best training you can possibly imagine around storytelling, leadership, and communication. Join us, get away, and relax into some great learning. I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. And you know, there are a whole lot of times that we find ourselves in over our heads. Maybe it's something that we did. Like I said, you just start digging a hole with ideas, with thoughts. You're just spitballing. You're just, throwing new ideas around. And all of a sudden you realize you said something you probably shouldn't have said. Now you dug yourself a hole, and many people, especially leaders who believe that they are thought leaders, especially leaders who believe they're thought leaders and they're pretty articulate. They're pretty good communicators. What happens is we tend to think that if I talked myself into this, I can also talk myself out of this. And there's an old Bill Engvall song you should probably be familiar with. It's called, "It Should Have Shut Up." There's a time sometimes just to let sleeping dogs lie. Back away from the moment, let it settle, recuperate, apologize if you need to, change your strategy a little bit. Now, I need you to understand there are times that you have sent your best ahead of you. You've paid all the little things that you need to pay. I'm not going to call them bribes or payola. I'm going to say, though, that sometimes you've got to pay the right people in the right order to get things done. I applied for the permit, but I didn't pay this team to do the evaluation before the permit, and so the permit's never going to get approved. I remember talking to a guy not too long ago who'd been round and round and round and round and round about getting an evaluation done on a piece of property. And they made the mistake of saying, well, we don't like your opinion. Can we get a second opinion? And what they didn't realize was that the person that they had gotten the disliked opinion from had the clout, not the position, not the authority, but the clout to call everybody else and say, don't you dare disagree with my opinion. And in the end, the entire deal fell through because they didn't play the game the way that one appraiser wanted to play the game. Did they do anything wrong? Well, not necessarily. Did they win? No. They lost in the end. And the challenge is there are a lot of places in life as a leader that oftentimes getting in over our head happens when we're young in age. We're just getting started out in this game. I know when I was in my 20s, I was a bit of a loudmouth. I know, surprise, surprise. I get it. I remember a particular time in the military I had finished my basic training, gone to my first base. I had been dorm chief in basic training, and so they put me in this group called the ropes when I got to my first base. And what ropes meant was I literally had to wear a leadership rope around my shoulder, and everybody knew that I was kind of considered in the ranks, if you will, even though I'm a zero basic, airman basic zero. I was an E nothing, literally. But with that rope on, they kind of saw me as someone, you better pay attention to what this guy is saying because the NCOs talk directly to him on a regular basis. Well, there was one particular encounter that I had with a gentleman. I believe he was an E5. Now, I've been in the military all of 90 days. I grew up without a father in my life. I had to make my own way. I had to fight my way through. I had to struggle through everything that I did. And I didn't gain any ground in my life because somebody said, hey, give him a chance. I didn't gain any ground in my life because somebody was standing behind me going, watch, what, with one exception. Well, watch out for him and you pay attention to him. Everything I had, I fought for. And so when this guy approaches me, he's like, hey, I need your team, your squad, your troop to do X, Y, Z. I said, well, you want us to go do PT, but we're firefighters. We train physically for 6 hours a day. That's what our classroom training is. And we walk back and forth to the fire ground every day. We do more physical training than your PT requires of us. We've already met the expectations. And if I remember correctly, our sergeant said that we're exempt from your PT. And he went off. I was just defending my guys. He did not like that. He's like, that's not leadership. You need to do what you're told. And he just ripped me up one side and down the other. And he said, I don't know where you get off thinking you're a leader if you won't comply. And so I took the pin out, I took the rope off, and I handed it to him. And I said, if that's what leadership is, I'm not interested. And I walked away. I was 20. I was 20. Now, if I went back to that same moment today, I probably wouldn't have acted the same way. I probably would have swallowed my pride a little bit. I like to think I would anyway. I've grown up a little bit. But I'd also like to think that if I were the leader on the other side of that, I would have had a little better communication skills. Not the tyrannical demanding, but hey, let me help you understand something you don't yet understand. And so we often get in over our heads because we're youthful, we're courageous, we don't know any better, and we're ready to plow through no matter what. We sometimes get in over our head because we've made decisions that outlast us, or we've made decisions that go beyond our ability to control them. And sometimes you deploy the money and you send out your best people and you employ the best strategies in the world, and that's still not enough to fix the problem. And you find yourself in a place where nothing you have done, nothing you can do right now is going to fix the problem. Because the problem isn't all of the outside circumstances. It can be. But the problem often is right here. The leader. The hard-headed, stubborn, I didn't get here by sitting back, I didn't get here because somebody else made my way, leader. The leader who says, I haven't figured it all out, but everything I've gotten so far, I've figured it out myself. Look at me. I got this. And the challenge is we often find ourselves there just based on our ego. Now, it's a fine tipping point. There's a place where we feel like if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. There's a place that we feel like I've learned, I've studied, I've applied myself, I've pushed hard, I've worked the extra hours. I deserve this. I started this, for heaven's sake. It's mine to run. It's mine to build. It's mine to decide what I want to do. If I decide I want to destroy the whole thing, it's totally my choice. And to a large degree, there's truth in that. But here's something else we've got to realize. Brandon Dawson points it out in his book, 9-Figure Mindset. John Maxwell talks about it a little bit as well in a different way. Grant Cardone points it out as well. When you get to that place where you're an 8, 9, 10-figure earner, some even more than that. Cardone's in the, 12 figures now. You realize that what you do is less about you. The longer you're a leader, the less leadership is about you. The longer you're a leader, the more you succeed, the more you accomplish, the less your will, your desire, your wants matter at all. Because at some point, like the Navy captain who has to say, am I going to lock that one cavern in the ship because it's sinking? And if I let that water in the rest of the boat, we all drown, even though there are 8 guys in there. If I lock that door, those 8 guys die, guaranteed. If I don't lock that door, 2,000 die, guaranteed. What choice does the leader have to make? That's a hard choice. But see, sometimes that hard choice looks like I've got to change the hardest thing to change. Right here. I've got to change me. I've got to do something different in my life. Maybe it's a completely new strategy. Maybe it's another way of looking at me. Maybe it's a step back, step aside, step over, sit down moment. But whatever it is, in this moment, you're in over your head. Maybe it was a policy change. Maybe it was a societal change, a cultural change. I remember having conversations with my grandpa, which I thought was a pretty smart guy. But there were things that he said in public, and I'm like, Grandpa, you can't say that in public anymore. I mean, it was acceptable, I guess, when you were 20, but you're 70. 50 years of societal change have kind of washed a lot of that away. You can't talk like that to people. You certainly can't talk like that in public. Now, see, the first time that I got a grasp of this lesson was when I read of a billionaire that he had stepped aside from the company he founded, handed the reins over to someone else because a shift in cultural expectations societally, not in his life, not in his family, not necessarily in his business, not in his industry, but something changed in society at large. And he said, I can't lead from where I am in this environment. Not because I'm not capable, but because I dug a hole that I can't get out of and remain in charge. And in that moment, the only decision to make that was wise, that was responsible, that considered the 8 people that were going to perish versus the 2,000 that were going to perish, his choice was, I've got to let go of my baby. I've got to give up what I built. I've got to step aside from my own success, or everyone perishes. I'm going to read just a brief part of this. It's on page 8. I'll tell you the name of the book in a moment. I'll even show it to you. But he says, social media companies, payment processing companies, home rental companies, and many more acted in unison as if some Soviet-style ideological purge was happening in plain sight right here in America, except the censorship czar wasn't big government. It wasn't private enterprise either. Rather, it was a new beast altogether, a frightening hybrid of the two. I could not anticipate what followed. 2 of my advisors, my company, resigned. Quote, please immediately remove my name from all internal public materials reporting or implying any association with your company and any of the subsidiaries affiliated with its entities. One of them wrote. Another, quote, I am submitting my resignation effective immediately. Another wrote to me, I was raised to value social justice causes and efforts for the greater good above all others. And a third advisor texted me, quote, I'm profoundly disappointed. Your comments on media have been deeply troubling. It wasn't just my advisors. Close friends called me to say how disappointed they were. One said, I had such high hopes for you. So in the end, I decided to practice what I preached. It wasn't easy, but in January of 2021, I stepped down from CEO of my own company 7 years after I founded it, and I gave the job to a person who was most qualified to do it, our longtime CFO, whose political perspectives couldn't be more different from my own. He's liberal, he's also brilliant. On the day I appointed him, I said that he would speak for the company going forward, and I meant it. There was a certain irony to the decision that lingered with me. When left-leaning CEO Mark Benioff wrote books about views on business and politics, it doesn't hurt their companies at all. Rather, it seems to help them. But my situation was different. At the company town hall explaining my decision to step down, I said it was important to separate my personal voice as a citizen from the voice of the company in order to protect the company. No one was confused. I do think there's a double standard at play. But ultimately, I didn't step aside because I feared a firestorm. I did it because my own beliefs told me that I had to keep business and politics apart. Woke Inc. by an immigrant, Vivek Ramaswamy, who came to this country with basically nothing in his pocket, started from zero and built a multi-billion-dollar company. A multi-billion-dollar company that was employing hundreds of people, maybe thousands. But those people in a town hall insisted that although he was an immigrant from another country who came to America, he didn't understand the plight of immigrants and people of color who came from another country, because he didn't comply with the way the social change happened 5 years ago. He had to step down from his company or stay at the head of it and watch his entire staff walk out. When you're in over your head, when you're in a hole, you got to stop digging. When you're in over your head, you got to stop digging. Now, he had dug his hole, made his bed. He had to lie in it. He got involved in politics, began to express his opinions about capitalism and socialism, and the list goes on, oh my. But as he became more vocal about what he believed, his employees said, we don't believe like that. We don't agree with you. And it was either going to be a walkout that was going to shut down his company, or it was going to be so much turmoil that the good the company was doing couldn't survive the opinions of the leader. I want you to let that settle in for a minute, because there are opinions that shape this world that, because they fit the narrative of the world, they're acceptable. They're accepted. They're applauded. They're promoted. And if you run the kind of company that fits with that, daycare for an example, and your worldview and your politics and your opinions allow you to stay in the spotlight, build your business, earn the money, give it to the right people. Because if you give it to the right people, you don't get in trouble. If you play nice with the right people, you can keep your head above water. And sometimes you just got to realize, I'm at the deep end, and I'm going to have to do something different. If you're in the deep end and you're still digging, stop digging. Let me tell you about a time that I found myself at the deep end, and I realized no one's coming to save you. I used to do a lot of marketing for a kids event that we did, and one of the ways that I would do marketing is to wear this giant inflatable clown suit. Now, when I had this clown suit on, I looked like I was 600 pounds. It probably had a 6-foot waist. It was enormous. I mean, I'm big enough as it is, but this thing was enormous. And I would wear my red wig with it, and I would carry around signs with it, and I would give out coupons to invite kids to our kids' events. And for the most part, we had a great time. This was before people had massive public phobias of clowns. And for the most part, it worked well. One day, I was at the local aquatics center, and I decided to go off the high dive. Now, let me just say, for the record, if you don't know this, you should know this. If it holds air, it holds water. If it holds air, it holds water. Now, I had enough sense to take off the battery pack and take out the little electric blower, and I left those on the side of the pool. But then I decided to jump off of the high dive into 13 feet of water in the clown suit. I'll never forget standing flat-footed at the bottom of 13 feet of water, looking up at 7 feet of water above me, and I could see right through the water the lifeguard stand. I could see a 15-year-old girl with her little flotation device looking down in the water at me with a bit of a grin on her face, as if to say, that clown is hilarious. I also remember that clown suit continuing to fill with water. And I realized, even if she dove in, there's no chance that 92-pound teenage girl is pulling me. I was pushing close to 200 pounds, maybe even over at that point, without the clown suit. But with the clown suit, 600 pounds of water. She's not pulling that to the top. And so I squatted down as hard as I could, and I jumped as hard as I could, and I pulled against that water until my deltoids were burning. I finally made my way to the side. I squeezed myself against the side to push as much of the water out of the suit as I could. I couldn't even pull myself up on the ladder, because as my body came out of the water, obviously it's a little different gravitational pull. When I got to the side, I was out of breath. My shoulders felt like they were on fire. My legs felt like they were on fire, and they were still in 18 inches of water per leg. I nearly drowned myself that day. I've been claustrophobic most of my life. Don't try to put me in the back seat of a two-door car. Like the firefighters when they decided to, for lack of a better word, haze me and put me in a locker, 6 people got hurt. I don't do small spaces. It's not a good plan at all. But the thing that I fear equally or more is drowning. And standing at the bottom of that pool, looking up through 13 feet of water at a lifeguard who couldn't help me. You may find yourself in business right now as a leader, realizing that you are in over your head. And there's nobody who can save you. Nobody could see me but the lifeguard. I'm 13 feet under the water. Nobody knew that I was in trouble. And if anybody was capable of helping me, they weren't on their way because they didn't know I needed help. If you find yourself as a leader in a spot like that, where those who could help are not coming, and those who can't help don't know what to do, and the only ones who realize you're in trouble are not qualified to pull you out, you got a couple of choices. The first of which is, you better get a deep breath and get busy, because it's on you. Sometimes the hardest thing to change is right here. That starts with awareness. What do I need to change? What is it about my attitude that caused my mouth to override my ability? My mother used to say it. He's got a banty rooster mouth, or a crocodile mouth with a banty rooster backside. A crocodile mouth with a banty rooster backside. You got a big old mouth and very little ability to back it up. If that's where you found yourself, then what you probably need is an attitude adjustment. By the way, our leadership retreat talks about attitude. We talk about attitude a lot. How do you expose them? How do you fix them? Not only your own, but the people that you lead as well. If you found yourself in over your head and attitude is your problem, you should probably be at this retreat. You may find that you found yourself at the bottom because situations around you have changed, like they did for Vivek. He didn't do anything wrong in his business. He wasn't running his business wrong. His business wasn't losing money. He wasn't mistreating his employees. He did nothing in the operation role as the leader that was wrong. What he did was step out of bounds according to the people who like to make the rules. I've mentioned on this podcast many times, but I remember standing face to face with a guy who was running about a $2.5, $3 million per month business. Per month. $2 to $3 million per month. His whole job was people would send him in ads, and he would put these ads through a system that would send them out on fax machines all over the country. Now, they were broken down by zip code, or they were broken down by industry, or they were broken down by verticals, perhaps. And one day, the President of the United States because somebody, knows a guy who knows a guy, and the guy he knows has the power of the pen. The President of the United States, I believe at that time it was Bill Clinton, signed an executive order that made it against the law, the Federal Trade Commission, I believe it was, to fax people unsolicited advertising. And with the stroke of that pen, thousands of people were out of a job. This guy's now in debt, filing bankruptcy, and he's trying to change everything as fast as he can. What did he do wrong? Nothing. Yesterday, what he was doing was perfectly legal. What he was doing was profitable. What he was doing was employing people. What he was doing was helping businesses. What he was doing was making an impact in local economies. But today, what he's doing is against the law. I want you to understand, as a leader, those laws, those policies, those tax laws, those environmental laws, they can change on a dime. And as a leader, you instantly find yourself in over your head. Societal pressures, cultural changes, religious shifts. These things happen, sometimes completely outside your control. Now, you might think, well, if you're running $1 billion company, stay out of politics. It's not your business. Let me just say, if you're running $1 billion company and you think politics has nothing to do with business, I'm astounded that you're running $1 billion company. If you're running a six-figure company and you think that politics, local or national, has nothing to do with your business, you're delusional. Because your property taxes, your sales taxes, your payroll taxes, what part of your city gets annexed or not, all of those impact your daily business, and all of them are political. It is not possible in today's world to run a business and not be involved in politics. It is impossible to run a business and not have politics involved in you. Now, what level and what stances you take, that's on you. Better do your homework, better do your research, better keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But you can't be completely ignoring that. That also will get you in the deep end and over your head. I'm going to throw one last caveat in there, and that is, if you find yourself in one of those places, the best advisors are probably not the ones that are currently sitting around the table with you. It's probably time to step outside of your box, outside of your corporate boardroom, outside of your stakeholder shareholders, and look for advice from some people who have done some things that you haven't done before. It's time to get out of the norm. It's time to consider and reconsider how you got to where you are. And be honest, if it's you that needs to change, get busy changing you. If your ideas are old and outdated, if you're missing a gap in education, if a policy change has left you in the dark, get caught up. If it's your attitude that's out of check, time to get an attitude check. Our retreat can help you with that. And if you find that the problem is that what you've communicated dug the hole deeper, we have got a retreat for that as well. I'm going to challenge you, don't just sit idly by. When you're in the deep end, swim harder. You may be the only one who's coming to save you. I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.